Hi guys, it's Christy with Just Saying with Cards. I haven't posted a video to YouTube in over 3 years, I think. I'm getting back into the routine of doing that, so this is my first. My hope is that Monday evenings I will have designed, prepped, created, made a card throughout the week so that I can then take a video of it and post the details, either YouTube, Instagram. I'm going to update my blog, which hasn't gone live yet, and get the word out of the cards that I'm making. So up first, if you've followed me on Instagram or my Just Saying Facebook page, you'll have seen previews of this card. This is made with the hippopotamus, I guess rhinoceros? The animal with the horn and the bird on its nose, from the Animal Outing stamp set and the coordinating designer series paper from Stampin' Up. I have used a card base in Pool Party. I've cut the designer series paper to be 4 by 5 1/4. That's going to be my base mat, this one here. Then using basic gray is a matte color that's going right here. And then, like a Polaroid, this image is getting mounted on this one here. I'll have the dimensions when I post the video because I have them written down, but I've kind of forgotten what they are. The image that I've done here, that I've stamped in Stays on Black and then colored in with the Stampin' Blends markers, I realized I was using alcohol ink and alcohol blends, which the two of those are both alcohol based, and the two inks bled. So earlier tonight I decided to try similar idea, but I stamped the image in basic gray for the animals, and then I used the coordinating old olive blends and ink to do the leaves. So that's the image that I'm going to do tonight on my card on this video. And I've used a little bit of baker's twine here with some silver sparkle. I'm not sure if it's a current item. I hope it is. It was available as an accessory with the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. That was a really cute baby set. I think last year. I am not sure if it's still available this year. Let's get going on to this card. It's a pretty easy start. I like to do the coloring first because if it needs any time to dry, that can happen while I'm assembling the card stock. Okay, so this is kind of a hokey setup. Here's my basic gray, there's my ink pad. I'm going to try to stamp. You are literally getting a point of view, and I'm wrapping my arms around my cell phone because knowing that I was going to video this tonight, I still didn't plug in and make sure the camera was charged, and it wasn't. It's nearly 10 o'clock at night, and I just want to get it done. So, using the stamp, straight down, straight up, I gave it a bit of a wiggle but didn't move the actual stamp image, just to get a good clear base. While doing my blends, I'm going to start with my lightest color. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to go dark. I'm going to add just the dark using the thick tip of the Stampin' Blends marker. There's two. There's the thick one here, and then the thin tip. I'm using the thicker one, and I'm using the areas where it's shaded by the image. So while I'm doing this coloring, I can't actually see my screen anymore, but all I'm doing is going around the dark areas of the image and just adding more. So this is an alcohol-based marker. It does dry fairly quick, but if you add in the lighter color and then pretend that you're pulling that dark color out, pull it out, push it up, pull it down, going in circles will get you some good results. And I try to stay in lines. I know I went out there. I'm going to take that dark color there and move it around. I'm going to take this dark color and try to move it around. Moving in circles, moving fairly quickly, pulling that color throughout the animal. You probably should have been smaller, but you can almost see that it's blending. Just giving it a little bit of time and it will blend. If you don't like it, you can add more, pulling that darker color out and give it some time. The best thing with these blends is let them do their magic. Okay, I'm going to let that settle for a bit. I'm going to use the color lifter, the fine tip here, and try to erase some of this outside the lines bit and let that do its work. The bird is going to be blue, and this is Pool Party, the dark one, so I'm going to start down here in the shading and lift that color up, and then using the fine tip of Pool Party in the light, draw that color around the rest of the bird. Not forgetting the beak that I'm going to do in yellow. What I've almost forgotten on every single one of my big animals is the tail. So he's done as far as color goes. So I'm going to let that sit for a bit, and I can stamp the image of the leaves that go along the top. This stamp, I wonder if you can see it very well. There's a frog, and I don't want that frog. I just want the leaves that are on this end. So as I'm stamping that, I'm going to stamp the whole image, but making sure that I know where that frog is, and then I'm stamping here on the cardstock. So this is going to give me a little bit of color that when I'm done with the coloring will look almost like a tone-on-tone image instead of my original that I did with the StazOn being in black. So again, with the Stampin' Blends in Old Olive, I'm just pulling the color from the water-based ink and the alcohol marker and letting the color just go where it wants to, and I can fill in with the finer tip of the dark, following the vein of the leaf, coloring in a little more, scribbling really is all it's doing, laying down some color, focusing where I want it to be darker, and then using the thick tip of the light Old Olive, blend those two colors together. Again, imagining myself pulling those colors from the tip of the leaf down to the edge of the cardstock. Switching to the thin one right here. Okay, so this animal is right now just floating in the middle of air. What I can do is using the thick end, just lay down some color. It's kind of blotchy, kind of weird looking, but I'm just going to add some more color, some green, and then blend the two together in circles, pulling the colors together. If I don't like it, which I want to add more here to the end, just lay down some color and blend it through. Pulling the color from the dark this way. Let the color do its work. Okay, so I've got some leaves up above, I've got an animal and some ground. What I don't have is any sky. So I'm going to use the ink pad for Pool Party And this is the old style, but the current color. And opening it up, I've used the lid to be a palette of sorts. And I can pull up some of this color with my aqua painter, which becomes my paintbrush, but going directly from here to the cardstock is quite blue. So I want to rub some off, and remembering that I've used water-based paint on the outlines of the animal and the leaves, I want to go away and just adding color, wipe off, add some color, trying to stay away from the actual watercolor ink that's already there with those other two. Hope that makes sense. If it doesn't quite work out, wipe some off on the side and start again. Add some more water. I always think it's funny when people avoid leaves, like the sky doesn't exist around the leaves. Okay. If you forget to swipe off some of the dark color, you can add water, but if you're using regular thin cardstock from Stampin' Up! That I have here, it will pill after using too many brush strokes. Just let it dry. It'll give texture to the cardstock when you're done. Okay, I gotta let it dry. It's got too much water on it. So I'm just going to set that aside, set aside my scrap, and we're at the assembly part of this card. So on the base of Pool Party, make sure that it's not a left-handed card. I'm going to use snail adhesive. What I think is funny is this paper is fairly just gray with some triangles and lines, but on the reverse side there's hippopotamus. So I guess the other one is a rhinoceros. So using my snail, adhering the cardstock designer series, and then to that I've got the basic gray and whisper white, just two plain pieces of cardstock, mounting them. I think this is like a 32nd or something of an inch border. And I'm not sure that this one is dry, but the one that I did a little bit ago is a little more dry. I think that's a little bit of ink there. I'll try to fix that. So I'm going to mount this directly to the whisper white, using a lot of snail for the size. This is 2.5 by 2.5. The reason why I'm using a lot is that this paper cardstock had water on it, so it's kind of changed the shape and it's not perfectly square, so, or not flat. So I'm trying, while standing over this, to get that fairly set. So the way I have this down here at the bottom, I was thinking of using that for a sentiment and adhering to the front, but I needed a little bit of something. So I'm using that twine. This is the Pool Party with the silver thread that goes through it. I'm just going to wrap this around, and I cannot for the life of me figure out how to do this not upside down. So I'm starting at the back, holding it in place, and I'm going to wrap it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And okay, this has to go on this side. This has to go on this side. Now that I've got the 3, I'm going to tie this in a knot, but I cross here, loop my open end under all three and struggle. Okay, so that now makes my kind of first knot, but I'm going to tie them together and actually make a knot. And then if I've left myself enough, I can make a bow with what's left. If not, it ends up just being a knot. Okay, so here's my attempt to do a bow using my loose end and the end that's still on the roll, because then I can avoid some waste. Looping, just like tying a shoe, but you'd think it would be easier. And just fiddling with the bows until they get sort of where you want them. Tightening them so they're about the same length, and then you've got to tighten that again. But because I put the original knot in there, I'm not losing what I've wrapped around when I fail at making the bow strings. So now I can trim off, oops, sorry guys, I can trim off what was, there you are, right? Okay, so that's no waste, no little minuscule ends off of the roll of twine. I've got my mini glue dots. What I'm looking for is my take your pick tool. Take your pick, it's a very pointy end, and one of the mini glue dots, I fold it in half on itself and then into quarters. So it's this very tiny mini glue dot that underneath here where the knot is, I can actually adhere that, okay, and spread these out. This layer now is getting dimensionals. I go overboard with my dimensionals. I have found some cards to sag, some cards to just not stay where they're supposed to. So I like to put at least in the middle and the four corners. Sometimes I go a little bit more, like this one. And a hint is if you gently stick your thumbnail in the middle of the dimensional backs, then it makes it easier sometimes to pull them off. You don't always have to do the ones that are in the middle of the focal image, because it's just there for the dimension, not the adhesion. Okay, that's off. Card, make sure it's going the right way. And then just cattywampus on its diagonal there. Card. This card, like I said, has no greeting. I was planning on doing that down here, but if I have this for a child's birthday or just a random card, I can always stamp on the inside, but that one's done. So a blog post will be going. I'll link to the video description of the blog address, as well as the products that are used, and my website where you can view and purchase those items as long as they're available. All but the twine is what I'm not sure of. If you have questions, you can send me a DM, send me an email, get in contact. Wait for the next video, which is next Monday night, and sneak peeks of my inspiration will be posted on Friday following this upload. Have a good evening.